Hi, welcome to Donegal Dat. I'm Mark, and today we're going to carry on looking at our 6x4 layout. Right, so this is the track design we've decided on. We've got two circuits of track. This inside circuit has a siding here for some shunting. We have a crossover between the two circuits here, and then we have a siding on this side, which is a future plan if we build another baseboard to join it on to this side here. So on this side, for the outside loop, we have a point with a crossover leading to some shunting lines, and also a point here with a long siding here, which can be used for future expansion of the layout. For the scenery side of this layout, the plan is to have a small hill here, with the tracks going through a tunnel, leading into a farm scene, then leading into a more developed area, town area, with the station on the curve here. So on this video today, we're going to look at fixing the track to the baseboard and doing some of the electrics. This layout is going to be DC controlled, which means there will be a controller for the inside loop and the outside loop. Power will be supplied to the loops via droppers, which are going to be soldered in here, over here, over here, and over here. That ensures good continuity of power throughout the layout, even through the points. This is a power track which you would have seen in the previous video for supplying power to the train set. They're not an ideal way of doing it because it only puts power into the circuit in one position. If you're able to use soldering iron and soldering droppers, it's much better. Some sets even come with this type of clip which actually slots in underneath the rails for supplying power. Again, it's only one point where the power is supplied. It's better to solder on droppers and run a wire underneath and connect them all together. I'll show you how to do that now. Right, here we are ready to solder these tracks. I've already disconnected them. So the first track we'll turn over. You can see on this one there's a space there where we can solder the cables onto. So get a file and just key up the surface. It just gives a better grip for the solder to go onto. Now the cable I'm using is 7 by 0.2 millimeters. You can see it there. Okay, so what that means is it's 7 strands of 0.2 millimeter wire. Okay, that's ample to use for most layouts, even if it's a DCC layout, because most trains will only pull about an amp. Okay, so that's that keyed up. Let's get some wire. It's always good when you're wiring a layout to have a wiring convention. Now my layouts, I use red and black. So red positive, black is negative. And my wire strippers. Cut. Again, this is quite a handy tool to have if you're not used to stripping wires. Place the wire in there, squeeze it together, and it strips it nice and cleanly. Okay. Just twist the strands together. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tin these wires. So basically that is just putting a layer of solder onto the ends. Okay, so take your ends, put some flux on. You can solder without flux, but flux makes it so much easier. There we are. So, get this out of the way, get my soldering ready. Blob of solder on the iron and just rub it along There's quite a lot of fumes off this. If you notice, I've got a little fan here so it blows the fumes away so I'm not breathing them in. Okay, so we've already keyed up the back of the track. So again, a little bit of flux on the back, solder, little blob on there like that, and same on the other side. There you go. It's really only just a touch. Any longer than that, you'll heat up the rails too much and you'll start melting the plastic sleepers. So take your dropper, bend it through 90 degrees, do the same on the other wire. Now again, this comes back to having a convention. I always go have black to the back. So on this one, obviously that's the outer rail, so that's the back rail, the longer one. That's the inner rail. So the convention will be the same all the way around. It just makes it handier if you're doing any fault finding. So make sure the bend is on the inside. You've already got solder on the rail and on the wire. So again, it's just a little tap. There it is, it's melted, and that's it. Just hold it in place for a second and do the same now with the red. Hold it in place, a little tap with the soldering iron so it just melts. It's gone solid, and there we are. The droppers are on. Okay, so place the track back roughly where it's going to go. Mark the wood like so, and then grab your drill. Right, anyone with headphones on, you might want to take them off, it's about to get loud. There's the hole. Feed the wires through. And there we go. That's it in place. Now the wires are hidden. You can't see them. Once this is ballasted and everything, you won't see the wires. And that gives you a good electrical connection now because they're soldered directly onto the rails. Okay, now likewise with the inner rail. Now on this rail, it doesn't have a gap, so you're going to have to cut a sleeper away. So I'll choose somewhere roughly in the middle. And clip it off. Okay, so you can trim that sleeper and put it back on once you've done the soldering. So again, it's the same. Key up the surface and then repeat the process. Right, I'm going to carry on doing the rest of the droppers. Just for information, drill is a 3mm wood drill bit for going through, and also be very careful when you're drilling through the baseboard that you're not drilling into anything underneath. Okay, now that all the droppers are done, it's time to pin the track to the board. Now, I like to pin my track down using these pins. These are Gauge Master pins. They're similar to the Hornby pins. Each piece of track has holes pre-drilled in the sleepers for pinning them down. For underlay, I just use 2mm cork, which I cut into strips to put under the track. The advantage of cutting into strips is when it's under the track, when you're ballasting, it gives it a nice shoulder, and it also helps with sound deadening as well, so you don't get the drumming on the wood. You can buy this and just cover the whole board, but I like to just do under the track because then it leaves me free to do other scenic bits that I wish on the bare wood. As you can see here, I've taken the strip, it's just slightly wider than the rail and sleepers, slide it underneath, and you can see you can curve it quite nicely underneath the track. So we take a pin. There's a useful tip. If you have a spare magnet lying around, use that to hold on the pins. It's easier to lift it around the track than to be in and out of a little bag. So I'll put the pin in the hole. Now anybody with headphones, it's going to be a loud tapping. Strike it in a few times. And well, I've got a spare bolt here, which I use for driving it in further distance so you don't accidentally hammer the rails. Now you don't want to put it in too tight so it pinches the sleeper, because then it will pull the rails together and affect the gauge and it can cause derailments. So it should be just about flush with the sleeper, and that's that track in position. Follow along. As you're going along, make sure the sleepers, or the fish plates, are all still connected and you haven't accidentally fitted them wrong so that one's overriding. So in the hole, make sure the cork is lined up. A couple of taps. Use the bolt. There we are. That's it. Right, I'll carry on doing the rest of this and come back to you when it's done. Right, there we go. Track's all pinned down. A little bit of trimming to do around the points. Underlay's all fitted nicely. So just a couple of things just to point out. You can see here on this track, if it would just focus, a little bit of solder has gone on the inside of the rail, so when we're doing the track cleaning, we'll clean that up and clean it off because it could cause derailments. And you can see a little bit of green around there as well. That's just where excess flux has run onto it and started to corrode, so we'll clean that up as well. You'll notice as well on the tracks that not every hole of the set track has a pin in it. As long as there's at least 2 pins in each section, that's enough to keep it secure in place. It's not going anywhere. Okay, alternative method for putting the track down is that you can glue the track in place. So you'd glue the underlay down, glue the track to the underlay and leave it overnight with some weights on top of it to dry, and that will fix it in place. So I think we'll leave it there. When we come back next time, we'll fit the bus wire and we'll solder on the droppers and see if we can get it up and running. Okay, bye for now.